Hi, it's difficult to follow all these amazing presentations. I'm going to be presenting on effective syllabus design from covering to discovering the material. And my presentation is based on research that I did as a teaching lecturer fellow in 2014 with the method Understanding by Design. And probably some of you already know it, or maybe know it as backward design. And the idea is that often when we are presenting, thinking of presenting something for the semester, we think of the material, we divide that in 15 weeks, proceed to deliver it and test it, and then students are supposed to have learned something, but what we have found sometimes in the sciences and in other places is that a semester later they don't seem to remember what they were supposed to get in your course, even if they got good grades. So maybe it's time for us, or where those problems are happening, and I think is pretty general for most of us, to start thinking of the design of the syllabus in a different way. Instead of thinking of the material first, let's think first of what are the learning goals that we have for that course. And those learning goals could be, organized. I'm so non-technological. Okay. It would be, you start by asking yourself, what do you want your students to learn, right? And within that, there will be skills, what do you want your students to be able to do when the course finishes, and also knowledge, what do the students know to be able to do those tasks afterwards, and also to be able to transfer what they learn in the classroom to real-life situations. So more like an enduring knowledge, not just passing the test. To give you an example, I'm going to refer to Spanish 102C, Volunteering, Global Education, and Good Writing. That was a course that included volunteering locally and also preparing students to volunteer internationally in Latin America. So it has everything to do with getting to know the cultures that we teach in our department, and also with the professional life of our students. So my learning goal was for them to be able to afterwards find good NGOs overseas and apply successfully to volunteer in them, and to be able to do that on their own. The knowledge they needed to have was they would need to analyze and determine which NGOs works best with volunteering, with volunteers, and also they would need to write clearly and effectively. I'm going to explain stages, 1, 3, and each one is going to have 2 slides. So once you have defined your learning goals, whatever it is for your course that you really, really want the students to have when the course finishes, you're forgetting all the thing about covering the material. You're just thinking, what do the students really need to take from this course? And then you decide the skills and the knowledge. Then you go to stage 2, which is evidence. How will you and the students assess what they are learning? And we have seen really beautiful examples already in the presentations this morning. So when you are thinking of the evidence, you will ask yourself what evidence will show that students have achieved each of those learning goals. Let's say you have identified 2 or 3 of skills and knowledge. And I have here again the learning goal that I had, and then I have the evidence that accompanied that. So they did team presentations. They selected 2 organizations in each, with 4 2 organizations in each country, and they studied which one would work best. They created a page. They presented on that to even the people in education abroad here. They presented work samples of how they were writing to invite the people to be interviewed through FaceTime in our classroom. And they also presented a sample of the letter of application at the end. Each one of them wrote for the organization they liked most the semester. They also did bi-weekly journals of their volunteering locally, reflect on how they were preparing themselves to be effective volunteers here or overseas. And they wrote academic blogs about the challenges of finding a suitable NGO, and they also did e-portfolios, and they loved it. But it does take a long time. You need to. It was ideal because it would connect what they were doing that semester with things they did previously. So if you can connect with their interest, find evidence that's not, and so stage 1, learning, deciding the learning goals for the course, and we have seen stage 2, which kind of evidence will prove that they have, to them and to you, that they have achieved those goals. And then stage 3 would be experiences and instruction, and you would be thinking of only then about the material. So what kinds of readings and activities and assignments are you going to include so that they achieve your outcomes or learning goals. And the traditional example strategies, well, none of you here do that, but just lecturing and testing and emphasizing mainly memorizing. Of course, that is immediately lost. That doesn't produce enduring learning. A better sequence is reading for each topic, reflective writing, like we do in the discussion forums. We have already home and discuss then in class about the readings. And also a very good one, and has already been illustrated in some of the presentations this morning, is to work through a series of developmental stages, build knowledge and or skills in the first 3-5 weeks, so they learn the know and the know-how, and then do smaller projects, and then at the end do the bigger project, which for us was the e-portfolios with all the reflections. And in your syllabus template, broadly assigned by week possible activities. So this is like a picture of one of my syllabus, and you have first the learning goals, and then you have here stage 1, stage 2 has the evidence, so you decide the evidence, put it here, and then broadly you start with each of the weeks, thinking mainly of the activities and the assignments and the reading. So the material is the last thing to be then brought into the syllabus. But because you have designed the whole thing about how can the students really master and remember this material. Thank you so much.